I thought about killing everyone in my class, just not in a nice way, not shooting them, because then they die fast. I didn't want them to die fast. I wanted them to die slow.
I didn't care about somewhat my family, somewhat myself, somewhat my friends. I just didn't care no more. You know, because I knew if I wasn't going to end up dead, I would have ended up in jail.
It's hard for me to say, but in all the times he raped me, all the times he hit me, he killed that person, it's gone.
Public embarrassment was the worst because I could be walking down the hallways with friends of mine, and faggot would be yelled out, and a bunch of kids would surround me, and as long as they weren't physically beating me up, no adult person would get involved.
Young people today are facing, you know, a whole different subculture than has ever existed before. I mean, first of all, there's less closeness. I mean, this whole computer technology has created less of an intimacy situation between families, between kids and each other. So you've got that major problem. You've got a breakdown of family that has never, ever been at this level at any point in history. At least 1 out of 2 marriages are going to end in divorce, and who knows how many are living under the guise of really painful experiences for young people. So you've got that. You've got teen suicide that is increasing every year as a potential option for young people that was never there before.
Oh, I've always been different. I grew up with 2 brothers, so I've always been a tomboy. And even as early as middle school, I've always looked like a boy. And I was the person in the school that no one liked, not even the nerds. And no one liked me. I had one friend my whole school year. All of my years of school, from kindergarten till my senior year, I had one friend, and that just didn't start till I was in 10th grade. They would call me names like dyke. They'd call me the B word. They call me fatso, and they call me dirty and tomboy and queer and faggot and lesbian. They call me words that I can't even say.
The high diversity issues and challenges within a school environment create all kinds of tension. I mean, anytime that there's somebody different, that person is a product of all of the hatred and all of the hate aspects of what young people are dealing with today.
I never talked to anybody because I was afraid of everything. I was afraid of everybody. I grew up in a really abusive family, so I had no one. So in high school, I didn't know how to talk to anybody because I was afraid of everyone, you know? So I was quiet, so they had no reason to make fun of me. But they did it because of that. And I would never retaliate. I would walk down the hall, and they would just scream and yell and laugh at me and bump into me, make me drop my books. I had someone to take a pad and stick it on my back, and I've had people put, you know, dog crap in my locker and smoke bombs. You name it. Every trick that has ever been played in high school has been played on me. Throughout my whole childhood, I was always different, and that made me feel like I had no goals because there was really no venue for me. There was nothing I could do because no one believed in me. I felt like I was just gonna never finish high school. I never finished school. I had thoughts of dropping out of junior high school because I couldn't do anything. I was the outcast. I would have killed a lot of the kids that made fun of me. And I can't tell you how many times I thought of things that I could do to these kids. I could kill them with my hands because I knew how to, because I was taught by my parents. It sounds pretty sick, and it's very true. There was a head cheerleader, and she just hated me. Oh, she just hated everything I did. She hated the way I talked, the way I walked. She hated my hair, she hated my mouth, she hated everything about me. And I thought about slitting her throat in class and watching her bleed all over the desk.
Violence has now become more of a condoned response. I mean, we look at these perpetrators and it just becomes more and more and more. I mean, each time there's another explosive situation, there's about, 50 or 100 more waiting to happen, because everybody is saying, a lot of these young people are saying, wait a minute, time out. I'm not getting noticed here. And if I want to get noticed, I better do something that brings this notice to me. And even if it means taking my life, at least I'm going to go out in kind of a blaze of glory, because their voice is not heard. Their voice is not heard in their families. Most families, kids, because of, the position in the family, don't have a major voice in decision-making in the family. Oftentimes, they're not even considered.
I was horrible in school, and I had all this stress from home, and then I'd go to school, and it would be like, it would just never stop. I would shake all day, and when I go home at night, I'd cry all night. My grades were so low, and everyone thought it was because I just didn't want to do my homework.
When we see these signs, our tendency is to walk past them, okay? Our tendency is don't get involved, because getting involved means that at some point we have to be accountable. The challenge for us as people is that if we don't get involved and that thing escalates, that's when you've got some really, really serious issues. And that's what we have seen around the country in terms of this outbreak of teen violence, is that the fact that nobody steps up to really be involved. They just kind of hang back and wait until this situation becomes so explosive, then they get involved. But that's after the fact. That's almost like, pulling something in after it's already been done and then attempting to put it in a maintenance situation. You cannot do it.
What happens most of the time for the common homicide scenario takes place, it's going to be two people. They're going to be acquainted with each other. Usually they're going to be of the same race. They're going to be drinking, or they're going to be smoking weed. A gun is going to be present, and hence one of them is going to be dead, and the other one's life is going to be ruined because he's going to go to jail for the rest of his life.
I joined the gang when I was 12 years old. At first, it was just a group of friends, all boys and whatnot. And all of a sudden, we just wanted to start the joint. We wanted to do something, so we started a little clique up. When you join a gang, there's two different ways. There's a way for guys, there's only one way for guys, and there's another way. There's two different ways for girls. For the guys, they jump you from 5 to 7 to 8 people. The girls, they have two different ways to get in. They have one way to get in for the girls is getting beaten up by the girls, or getting sexed in by the guys.
Violence is used so you can be on top of every other gang. If you can produce more people with more guns and fight more, then you're on top, because people gonna look at it whereas to, look, we can't even beat them. If we go to war with them, we're gonna lose. We're gonna end up with more dead bodies than they will. So if you exclude violence from a gang, then you're gonna have a bunch of men going to war with their fists. Back in the day, they fought with chains, they fought with pipes, they fought with whatever they can get their hands on, One gang got a hold to some guns, every other gang had to get a hold to some guns. What's gonna happen next? One gang get a hold to some grenades, nuclear bombing. Everyone is gonna be with grenades and nuclear bombing. Violence in some situations with young people, let's call them wannabes, that hang around with a certain group of friends, and they decide that in order for them to be known locally, they would need to instill fear in others and other people who'd want to raise up against them.
My family life when I joined the gang was, when I was younger, when I was 12, 13, it was really good. You know, after I started hitting, when I started hanging with the gang more, like around 14, I wanted just to get away from my family. You know, they go to parks, I didn't want to go, I couldn't go. So I started getting real distant. Family life was real good, but I just started getting real distant because when I was in the gang, didn't know. Then when I joined it, I had to get real distant to them because of myself to protect them from the other gangs from messing with them.
90% of my nationality don't have fathers in the home, which is sad, but they pissed off about it, you know? They're highly upset because their fathers don't want to deal with them. It's not right, but we grow up with this hate inside of us, you know, and that's what makes a walking ticking bomb.
Teens join gangs because of many reasons. One of those being poverty, another one being just a sense of belonging, and sometimes, in most cases, often than not, there's nothing else to do.
Well, the reason why I wanted to join a gang was acceptance from everybody. I wanted for myself to have more things. People look at me like, you know, you're more than this, more than him, more than that. I just wanted to feel more power in the neighborhood. I wanted people to know who I was. I wanted to run things. I felt like I was indestructible. I was Superman. Walking around with a gun, that gives you power. If anyone says anything, all you gotta do is lift up your shirt and show them, you know, they ain't gonna say nothing. There wasn't no love for myself. I loved my boys more than myself. That's how much, you know, the gang meant to me.
A teen will triple their risk of becoming a murderer if they use a weapon or have a weapon, if they've been arrested, if they have problems at school and at home, and if they have some type of neurological problems. The compounded effect of poverty plays a major role in that. The joblessness that's out there, the low self-esteem that's out there because you don't have what everyone has, the poor sense of value, the fact that a lot of the young people in the inner city and the poor areas have been portrayed a different way, so their self-image is totally screwed.
This disconnecting feeling, it seems that the whole generation is just being given up on. And with that type of feeling, that's no self-worth, no hope in self. No one cares what I'm going through or where I'm going to end up.
Well, when it happened to me was me and two of my friends, supposed gang friends, brothers, we just got done selling our drugs. You know, we were hungry, so we went to McDonald's. Before we went, we were on bikes. All three of us had bikes. Went down the opposite gang's territory, riding down the street. Then all of a sudden, like a movie, here comes three cars come ripping around the corner. Cars started chasing me. My friends took off on me. I was left behind. A car started hitting my back tire with their wheel, making me pop wheelies. And somebody jumped on top of the hood and hit me in the back of my head with a cinder block. You know, one of them construction blocks they build houses or whatever with. They hit me in the back of my head with a cinder block. Knocked me off my bike, and I was in the daze. I knew I was about to die. Started hitting me with baseball bats, crowbars, stabbed me, threw bottles at me, burnt me, spray painted my face, my eyes, my mouth. After they beat me all up, they shot me to check to see if I was still living. You know, after so long, I was just, I guess, I was just there.
The guy that raped me was my boyfriend at the time. It was someone I had known probably for a year. Rape meant some stranger coming at you in a dark alley, and if you protected yourself and you know, weren't in a dark alley, it didn't happen. And that was it. The sex conversation that everybody has with their mom, I had because when I was little, I remember my mom getting pregnant. So the sex conversation was strictly, how did you get pregnant? And after that, I don't really remember talking about it. My mom was not. I'm the oldest. I don't have a great relationship with my mom. She never talked about it. She didn't even bring it up. I guess I thought of it like I didn't live in a place where that might happen, so I didn't have to think about it.
Teenagers may face what is most common, and the most common kind of assault that we see here at our program is date and acquaintance rape. There also may be survivors of incest, child sexual abuse. Dating violence may be another component, and so forced sexual contact can occur within that. The most common kind of understandable rape is forced sexual intercourse. That's somebody forcing somebody sexual against their will. There's also the kind of abuse that we look at in abusive terms in terms of more long-term enduring, where someone is taking the power and control away from somebody else and victimizing them sexually. It could be a molestation kind of thing.
First time that I can really remember, a lot of my memory is black. The first time I remember is I fought him off for a really long time. He kept pressuring me for sex over and over again. I just kept saying no. I remember trying to stop him, and this look just glazed over his face, and he held my hands behind my back and over my head. He pushed me to the floor and held my hands over my head and just raped me. And then, you know, I remember my head banging on the couch, just banging, banging. And when he was done, he got up, walked out of the room. I walked in my house, and in my bedroom, I have a full-length mirror, which is like a little dressing area. And I always used to sit there and get ready and go out and do my hair. And I sat down in front of the mirror and just started crying, looking at myself, like, you know, what are you doing? It didn't feel right, it wasn't right. And all I kept thinking was, God, if this is what sex is, I don't want to do it again.
The tremendous amount of responsibility that survivors hold about how they brought this assault on themselves is a real issue and a real challenge to deal with in terms of disclosing and in terms of healing and being able to get some counseling and get some help and really talk about it to get some perspective about what has happened to them.
I would come home from school, go up in my room, and sit. And I didn't talk to my family anymore. And I have a very close family, but didn't talk to my family anymore because, you know, they didn't like me. The only person that could possibly love someone like you is me. I mean, that's what he told me all the time, you know.
Violence works. People who bully because they get away with it. And if nobody's able to kind of stop them and say, wait a minute, this is not an okay thing that you're doing. Whether it's, you know, stealing, robbing, forcing someone to be sexual against their will is a crime in and of itself. The best predictor of behavior is previous behavior. What is this person like to other people, to his friends? Is this somebody who likes to put other people down in a whole context of things, not just sexually, but other kinds of ways? How do they treat women? Just as a whole, do they make cracks about women?
When I thought his friends were about to find out, and they called one night, and we were in his room, and I thought, the phone rang, and I thought, oh, Saved by the Bell. You know, someone's going to be on the other end of the phone. It's going to have to stop. For once, it's going to be over. So I put it on speakerphone, and they said, I heard them on the phone, his friends. He says, oh, you want to hear something cool? Whack. And he just started beating me up, and they were laughing.
I think the idea about why people commit sexual assault is really difficult for folks to wrap their heads around. It's not an issue of one day they just kind of walk down the street and decide, gee, I need to rape somebody today. We look at, in the kind of prevention program that we focus on, is taking a look at society as really being a culture of violence, a culture that tolerates violence, especially toward women. And within that is an idea about how power comes into play with making somebody do something you don't want them to do.
I don't trust anybody anymore, men especially. I don't. You know, dating, people talk about dating, and it's exciting and it's fun. And
work with victims of hate violence, we term hate violence to be anything from shouting, screaming, or intimidating someone verbally to vandalism of a building or a home or some other facility, or an actual act of violence against a person based on any type of act like sexual orientation, race, religion, gender. I think that the motivation for hate violence and bigotry and homophobia or hate against any minority group, especially in youth, stems from an overwhelming climate that says that such violence and such intimidation is okay.
I was leaving school and going to a friend's house, and then we're going to walk up to the mall that was half a mile away from the school. And I guess what happened, there was a group of guys in the church parking lot across the street, and they were drinking in the cars, and we were walking by. And they were from my high school, and I think they recognized who I was, and that's when they started calling me names. Some of the things they said were f***ing faggot. I think their favorite word of choice was queer, or basically faggot would be the best ones they would use. As we tried to walk further away, they came closer to us, and all 15 of them ganged up around. I was with a girl and a guy, and the one guy ran away. The one girl was tripped, and she hurt her knee, and then she kind of limped away. The other guy kicked me in the back with a steel-toe boot. The other ones beat me down and kicked me in the stomach and in the face, too. Once they realized I wasn't kind of like not moving, I guess you call it, they ran back to their cars and drove away.
I think inherently people aren't homophobic by nature. I think that all things that we're unfamiliar with would cause us to be cautious of those things, would cause us to doubt them, be confused, and possibly get violent, especially if we don't understand them. Everything from racism to homophobia stems from a misunderstanding of what it means to be black, what black people are about, what gay people are about, and because of that lack of training, and because of a lack of conversation and discussion about those issues and those people, a lot of young people and even older people feel like the only way they can address those people and those issues is by lashing out against them and by being violent against them.
Violence stems from the home a lot of times, because oftentimes children learn how to be violent from watching their parents fight, watching how their parents interact with other adults, and watching how their parents interact with the children. Drugs play a major role. 80 to 90% of the crimes that are committed by people who are impaired by drugs or alcohol. They're high.
I think that young people are still going through some of the same old issues that young people have been going through for a long time, and also some new issues. I think that young people are going through both the isolation and peer pressure that all young people have to go through. I think that there's not one young person we could talk to today that says that school as a young person is a fascinating and really fun time. I think that the pressures that exist on young people are outrageous, both with grades and wanting to fit in.
Someone had told me recently about this happening to black people as well a long time ago. And you know, even to this day it still happens. You know, it's pretty sad because that was a long time ago. And the funny thing about that is, believe it or not, I still run across a black person once in a while who calls me a faggot. Which really kind of degrades me even more, because it makes me think, you know what it's like to be treated this way, so why are you treating me this way?
In our society, because of the way we treat certain minority groups, especially gays and lesbians, because they are not covered in the law, they are really considered second-class citizens, they're almost disenfranchised from a lot of different things, people feel like they have a license to kill them, a license to attack them, a license to be bigoted toward them. There's a lot of ways that manifests itself, whether it's in the form of violence, direct discrimination, or in a case of youth specifically, it deals with just ignoring the problem. There's always been this class struggle in this country and in many countries to not let a certain group have what the other groups do have. And that's been shown time and time again through American history, and right now gays and lesbians happen to be the group that's being targeted for keeping them out of what everybody else has.